Eygló Harðardóttir, félags- og húsnæðismálaráðherra, góðir gestir, dear guests. I want to begin by welcoming you to this third meeting in our university series, which has the Icelandic heading of Fræði og fjölmenning, Academia and Multiculturalism, open meetings which we have been hosting here. This is the third in the series. And today the university has teamed up with the Ministry of Welfare and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in hosting this event on the occasion of a visit of experts from the Norwegian Refugee Council, NRC. Established in 1946 to assist refugees in Europe after World War II, NRC has developed extensive expertise in its field of work, working closely with organizations such as the UN and other established humanitarian organizations worldwide in promoting the rights of refugees and internally displaced people, which brings us to today's topic. Today we will be focusing on a pressing issue, namely the refugee crisis in Europe, and more specifically the surge of refugees to the continent from war-torn states in the Middle East and Syria in particular. The number of Syrian citizens fleeing war in their country is nearing 4.4 million, and hundreds of thousands have sought refuge in Europe, including the Nordic countries and thus Iceland. The level of seriousness of the crisis escapes no one. International and regional organizations, governments, and citizens feel the effects and the pressure to find a solution, to react in the best way possible, to alleviate the sufferance of the people who have been forced to leave their home country due to war. And this is what our speakers here today will be addressing. We will have 4 presentations, each around 15 minutes, and after each presentation we will open the floor to 1 or 2 questions from the audience. But if we run out of time, I'm sure that the experts will be more than happy to answer questions and discuss matters in the hall, where we will serve light refreshments after the meeting. As for our speakers, we are very happy to have with us here today Iceland's Minister of Social Affairs, Eygló Harðardóttir, who will give the first talk. She will give us an account of how the Icelandic authorities have responded to the crisis in Syria and the challenges that have arisen from the increased flow of refugees from war-torn areas to Europe. Eygló, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Dear guests, firstly, I would like to say that I'm very thankful for the initiative of the University of Iceland to have these series of meetings on such important topics at this moment in history. Today, we are here to discuss Syria refugees in Europe. And I think that we can actually use quite large words when we're describing the situation with regards to the refugee problem in Europe or in the world. We now have an unprecedented situation where, as Jón Atli just mentioned here, we have 4.4 million official 4.4 million Syrians who are fleeing their homes to the neighboring countries, and in some cases further on to Europe. It is estimated that around 320,000 Syrian refugees are in Europe now, equivalent to the total population of Iceland, while there's around 4 million refugees in the neighboring countries, mainly Turkey and Lebanon, and as well as Jordan. We receive daily news of the horrific situation in Syria, with desperate people trying to reach safety. And I think that all of us, as fellow human beings, we feel obliged to react and assist people in need. Last fall, the government of Iceland formed a ministerial committee that was to address the refugee situation with regards to Iceland. The aim was to launch actions that looked both at the way things were developing here in Iceland, but also what we could do on the international scene. We decided to implement and fund 3 types of projects within the next 15 months for the total amount of 14 million euros. First, we decided to fund international organizations and relief organizations for refugees abroad, such as the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for the Refugees, UNHCR, the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, and Healthcare on Wheels run by the Icelandic Red Cross. Secondly, we decided that we needed to strengthen the necessary measures in order to radically change and expedite the processing of asylum applications to respond to the huge increase in their numbers, thereby reducing the uncertainty and inconvenience involved for the applicants. And thirdly, to provide assistance to refugees in Iceland and increase the number of acceptance of so-called quota refugees. I think the English term has been resettlement. We use this in Iceland to talk about quota, but the international term has been resettlement of refugees. The emphasis will be and has been on providing the appropriate assistance for refugees when settling in a new society. This is aimed at refugees which will be arriving via the UNHCR, as well as those arriving through other channels. On the 20th of January, we are expecting the first group of refugees from Syria through the channels of UNHCR. They're currently located in Lebanon and are preparing to move to a new country, which, as you can imagine, is something that's quite exotic and quite difficult in their minds. It's important for us to keep in mind they did not choose to leave their country, but were forced to do so because of conflicts and hopeless situation. By agreeing to resettle in a new country, many of them felt as they were giving up the hope that the conflict in Syria would be resolved. When you decide to resettle to another country, you're torn between your past and your future. You're relieved that you and your family will be safe, but at the same time you're leaving behind friends and family that you're concerned about, and returning becomes a distant dream. There are 3 municipalities here in Iceland that are participating in the project and are preparing to welcome new inhabitants into their communities. This, to us, is a community-based project where many individuals are participating, from the local social workers to the children in the school that will be welcoming new classmates. The Red Cross provides these families with support families to assist them in getting to know their new society. And the resettlement program in Iceland has a long history. It is known to be a best practice, especially when it comes with regards to the support families within the United Nations, and is well established. However, we have been taking our first steps in assisting refugees after receiving international protection, or what we often hear so often in public discourse, the asylum seekers. The landscape in Iceland has drastically changed during the recent months when it comes to refugees who have received their status after an asylum application. Last year, 82 individuals received international protection, which tripled the number from the year before, and that year was without precedent. While we know months ahead when the refugees that come through the resettlement program will be arriving and we can prepare for their arrival, there is no notice when it comes to individuals that receive a refugee status here in Iceland or come to seek asylum. Their situation can furthermore be very diverse. It can be individuals who have been here for some period of time. They might be working, they might have made friends, or have families, or a person that has just arrived and is in a very similar situation to a refugee that comes through the resettlement program. Through the Ministry of Welfare, we have issued guidelines for municipalities on how to assist these refugees. The principle in the guidelines is that the refugees will receive the same assistance as an Icelandic citizen in a similar situation, which includes financial assistance to start a home, social and psychological assistance. But we also know and recognize through the guidelines that there is a need to address the specific situation of a refugee. And there is a certain support that is only provided to refugees, such as Icelandic lessons and assistance with family reunification. And we do consider it's very important for the refugee to be reunited with his or her family. We know that you cannot start to rebuild yourself after a trauma if you're concerned about your closest family members. According to the guidelines, the state reimburses the cost of family reunification up to 75%. However, as the situation now is in the world is unprecedented, we have sought the assistance of the International Organization for Migration regarding family reunification, but the organization assists us in transporting refugees safely from conflict zones to Iceland, where their family members have received refugee status. The state is now fully funding the travel cost on a temporary basis. The cooperation has been successful, and last week 2 families were reunited from Syria. However, this is a complex process where many actors work together, both domestically and internationally, to secure those families that have been torn apart due to war conflicts and unite them again. The unity of the family is one of the preconditions for successful beginning of resettlement. And secondly, what we have also found, which is so important, that we help them to enter the labor market and we help them to get education. The Director of Labor, Vinnumálastofnun, recently advertised that they were looking for companies interested in hiring refugees, and already this one ad, has provided some refugees with the opportunity to enter the labor market. While there have been many positive steps taken to address this new situation in Iceland, we still need to address various challenges. This includes the problem of housing for refugees, which is of a great concern, how we value and recognize education of the people that come here, and that how do we make sure that refugees will be able to find work where their skills and education are fully valued. We do see that there are gaps in the regulation framework that need to be addressed in many cases. I assume that this was when regulations were written when refugees were not being considered. This includes, for instance, the possibilities of student loans. But I do sense that there is a great will within the society to do its best to welcome new residents and do it well. So, as I said, we are witnessing unprecedented movement of people seeking refuge in secure countries in the world. And I think that I can restate what I've said previously, that I don't think this is something that will stop tomorrow or this year or the next, that we are seeing a different world when it comes to people fleeing danger and difficult situations. And maybe one day that could even be us. So we need to be willing, and we need to be able to assist them in every way. So I look forward to listening to the lectures today and a fruitful discussion about this issue. Thank you.